Week 3 was not kind to me whatsoever. 8-8 on the week last week, which is exactly 500, which knocked me down to 31-17 on the year. But there were some positives to week 3. The week 3 video was the 6th most viewed video in this channel's history. It was also the second most earned revenue in the history of this channel. Your support last week meant everything to me. Your support throughout the entire season so far has meant everything to me. The last month for this channel, I don't think I've seen this channel grow more than it has in the last month. At least it's been a very long time since then. I thank everybody for their support so far this season. And without further ado, let's get right into the week 4 predictions. Let's bounce back from an 8-8 week last week and get back on the right track. Lions and Packers. For the Lions, coming off of a dominant victory over the Falcons. The Packers coming off of a comeback victory against the Saints, where they were down 17-0, but rallied to win 18-17. Christian Watson is anticipated to make his season debut for the Packers, which is a huge boost for the Packers passing game. Aaron Jones was limited at practice today, nursing that hamstring injury that he suffered in week 1 against the Bears that has kept him sidelined in the last 2 weeks. If Aaron Jones plays for the Packers, I don't really know who to pick in this one, because Aaron Jones historically does well against the Lions, but what kind of snap share is Aaron Jones going to receive? How much is the workload going to be? I think either way, though, I think the Lions, they win this game. Because if Aaron Jones does play, his status is in question at this point. I really can't see them putting Aaron Jones into harm's way as he's coming back from a hamstring injury. And hamstring injuries, they can always linger throughout the year. Plus, that Lions defense, they have held their own almost this entire season so far. And the Lions, they could be 3-0 right now, but if one or two things went differently in their loss to the Seahawks in overtime, they probably win that game. But I think the Lions, I think they are due for a special season. I think it's this year with the way they're playing so far. I am going with the Lions. Falcons and Jaguars. The London game on Sunday morning. Both these teams are coming off of losses last week. Falcons to the Lions, Jaguars to the Texans. Even though the Jaguars lost the way that they did last week, I think they bounce back and win this game. The Falcons, despite me thinking they can be a team that can fly under the radar this year, as they have all these special pieces on offense, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Drake London and Kyle Pitts, they don't get used the right way. At least in my opinion. Drake London, he has been used in the past correctly. But Kyle Pitts, I don't get why they don't use him and utilize his talents more. I mean, they drafted him 4th overall just for Arthur Smith, because Arthur Smith is a 2 tight end set guy. But he's barely using this unicorn in Kyle Pitts. Plus, the Jaguars, they have shown that they can bounce back from a slow start to the year. They did it just last season to rally and make it all the way to the divisional round of the playoffs. Plus, Calvin Ridley goes up against his old team, and I imagine he's going to play with a lot of emotion against a team that I feel like really kind of screwed him over. As he wanted out of Atlanta, it made him sad. Now he's on a Jaguars team that is way better offensively than the Falcons are. All the Falcons do is run the ball really well. That's it. If you force the Falcons to have to pass, then they won't win. Which is why I like the Jaguars. I am very surprised to be talking about this game this early, but Dolphins and Bills. How is this not a primetime game? Like, I really want to know, why isn't this a Monday Night Football game? Why do we have to watch Seahawks and Giants on Monday night? We can watch this matchup. This is why flex scheduling needs to be a thing all season long. But this is going to be, I think, the highest scoring game of the week. And I know that's probably not really that bold of a statement, considering that these are two of the best offenses in the NFL. In fact, these are the two highest scoring offenses in the league. But when this is all said and done, I think this game is going to go back and forth. Even though the first time these two teams played last season, it was a defensive slugfest. I think we're in for a very high scoring game, but in the end, I look at the Dolphins defense and I do find it severely underrated. I feel like the Miami defense hasn't been talked about as much due to the playmakers on the offense. And I think their defense is going to rise up to the occasion and make plays late in the game. And they pull off this upset against the Bills, although I don't think this should be an upset. I feel like the Dolphins should be favored in this game by at least 2 or 3 points. But they are a 2.5 point underdog at this moment. But I'm going with the Dolphins to win and pull off this upset. Broncos and Bears in a game where I unfortunately have to pick somebody to win. No offense to either of these teams, but I just have to pick somebody as they're both 0-3. The Broncos, I expected much better from them at this point in the year. While the Bears, I pretty much knew that the Bears weren't going to be as good as what people thought. As the Bears, they received a lot of hype in the offseason when they ended up acquiring DJ Moore. They talked about how Justin Fields has a wide receiver finally, how Justin Fields is getting help. I think it's more of the Bears defense that's being a letdown compared to Justin Fields. But I am going to pick the Broncos simply because I just find them a little bit better than the Bears right now. At least the Broncos, they have shown that they're capable of winning games. It's just they have fallen short in the first 2 games of the year. But I am wondering how the Broncos will respond last week after giving up 70 points to the Dolphins. I don't think that defines the Broncos defense. I just feel like the Dolphins are a high-powered offense, as they have shown the first couple weeks of the year. That the Dolphins, they are an offense that is not to be taken lightly. But I'm going with the Broncos in this one simply because I had to pick somebody and I just find the Broncos slightly better. Ravens and Browns. The Ravens are coming off of an overtime loss against the Colts last week, while the Browns, they're coming off of a dominant win over the Titans last week. I believe their defense allowed less than 100 yards in that entire game. The Ravens, they are dealing with injuries, as that feels like it's been the norm for the Ravens the last several seasons. I don't think there's been a team that's had to deal with injuries more than the Ravens have had to deal with injuries. I know every team has to deal with injuries at some point in the year, but the Ravens, I feel like they have dealt with injuries the most in the last 3 seasons. But I'm going to go with the Browns to win this matchup. I like Lamar Jackson as a quarterback, but I just feel like with the Ravens dealing with injuries, I just don't know if the Ravens are going to be able to overcome this, as they've had a difficult time overcoming injuries in the past. And with that Browns defense having momentum after a dominant performance last week, I just like them in this dog pound. The Browns, they've looked strong most of the year, except that week 2 loss against the Steelers, where the Steelers defense rose to the occasion. I'm going with the Browns to advance to 3-1 on the year. Bengals and Titans. The Bengals are coming off of their first win of the season against the Rams on Monday Night Football, and they go on the road against a Titans team that, in my opinion, is completely depleted. Only 94 yards of total offense against the Browns last week. Derrick Henry's dealing with turf toe. Tajay Spears is getting a bigger workload than we anticipated coming into the season at this point so far in the year. But we know the Bengals as a team that gets off to a slow start to begin the year, but then the further along we get into the season, the better the Bengals become as a team. And I think they use the momentum from last week, and they make a statement win against the Titans on the road. The Bengals defense rose to the occasion, led by Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard in that pass rush, going up against a depleted Titans team where they have one of the worst O-lines in the entire NFL. Jamar Chase is confident. He had a big game last week against the Rams. Joe Mixon found the end zone finally this season. And pretty much a statement win for the Bengals is incoming this Sunday. Rams and Colts. For the Rams, they fell to 1-2 last week, losing on Monday Night Football to the Bengals. And now they go on the road to Indy, where we don't know who's going to be the quarterback for this game. Will it be Anthony Richardson, who is still in concussion protocol, or will it be Gardner Minshew? I feel either way, I like the Rams in this game. The Colts are coming off of an emotional victory over the Ravens in overtime last week. While I think the Rams, they are going to be much better down the line. Cooper Kupp, it's possible he might play next week and get activated off the IR. And I think adding in Cooper Kupp to that passing offense with the way it's been right now in these first couple weeks, I think adding in Cooper Kupp, I think the Rams are going to make a run at the playoffs. And that's probably a bold statement considering that they could possibly fall to 1-3 when the week is all said and done. But I'm picking the Rams to win this game. Even though they did lose to the Bengals last week, I think the Rams picked up a little bit of confidence moving forward for the rest of the year. And I think they win on Sunday. Next up, we've got Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore, also known as Bucks versus Saints. It's always a classic when these two teams face off, mainly because Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore always get into each other's faces, always get into a confrontation, always having something to say to each other. But yeah, this is going to be high-stakes TV. For the Saints, Derek Carr is expected to miss this game. Jameis Winston is expected to get the start. And he goes up against the team that drafted him #1 overall. Also a huge boost to the Saints offense is Alvin Kamara is going to make his season debut after serving the 3-game suspension that was handed to him by the NFL in the offseason. I talked about for weeks how the Buccaneers are an underrated team. And they did better, in my opinion, on Monday Night Football than I think a lot of people anticipated. The Eagles are a team that is a juggernaut, as they are one of, if not the favorite, in the NFC. And the Bucs, they held their own for as long as they could in that game, but the Eagles, they just pulled away in the end. Their defense held their own, and I think the Buccaneers, they win this game against the Saints, as I do think, without Derek Carr, I do feel like the Bucs are slightly a better squad than the Saints are. But who really knows? Because with Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore going at it, if Mike Evans gets tossed out of the game like he did last season when they played, then I think that could change a lot of things. Commanders and Eagles. And this game, it feels simple to pick the Eagles. However, the Commanders, they ended the Eagles' winning streak last season and handed the Eagles their first loss of the year. I don't think that happens again. I feel like with Sam Howell coming off of the performance that he had last week against the Bills, I think his confidence may be a bit shattered. I think the Eagles, they have an easy one this week against the Commanders. Although I don't want to jinx it, I think Sam Howell has some potential, but I don't think he's got potential this week against a ferocious Eagles defense. And the Eagles have been running the football very well all season long so far. I just think signs point to a easy Eagles win this week. Vikings and Panthers. Both teams are 0-3 to start the season. Vikings, a bit of a surprise they're 0-3 to start the year. Considering what they did last year making the playoffs, They have arguably the best receiver in the NFL in Justin Jefferson, but they're 0-3. The Panthers, they have put up more of a fight than I expected so far this point in the year. They moved the ball pretty well offensively against the Seahawks last week, but their defense wasn't good whatsoever. As Kenneth Walker had a good day, Zach Charbonnet did well also. And I'm going with the Vikings to win this game. Will Bryce Young be under center for the Panthers, or will it be Andy Dalton again? I really think this game could go either way depending on if Andy Dalton plays or if it's Bryce Young that plays. Because Andy Dalton and Adam Thielen, they developed a pretty good connection last week against Seattle. But I'm going with the Vikings, and if the Vikings fall to 0-4, I am intrigued to see what happens next. Because if they fall to 0-4, they're falling out of contention. And it's a contract year for Kirk Cousins, so do they trade Kirk Cousins? That could be a possibility if they do indeed fall to 0-4, but I do have the Vikings winning this game. Steelers and Texans. The Texans have proven that they can win a game. I can finally put trust into picking the Texans, but I'm not going to this week. I just think that Steelers defense is very strong. The last 2 weeks, they have come up big for the Steelers in their last 2 victories over the Browns and the Raiders. As much as I think the Texans are an underrated team coming off of a victory over the Jaguars, getting their first win of the year, I just think this is one of the last defenses that you want to see is that Steelers defense. When that Steelers defense is fully healthy, I think they're easily a top 3 defense in the NFL. And even though their offense hasn't been as productive as many people would like, Steelers fans wanting Matt Canada fired, I still think the Steelers do good enough offensively to win this game. But could this be a trap game? Of course, it's the NFL, anything can happen. But I just can't see it. But we'll see the Texans can win 2 games in a row, as Tank Dell had a big game last week for the Texans. Nico Collins, he had a big week too, but not productive in week 3 whatsoever. But I still like the Steelers either way. Raiders and Chargers. I do have the Chargers winning this game, but something tells me that the Raiders may pull off this upset. Now, this is a battle between 2 of the most questionable coaches in the NFL. As I have seen so many posts about these 2, in Josh McDaniels and Brandon Staley, about how they probably shouldn't be coaching. Josh McDaniels really faced harassment on social media after his coaching decisions towards the end of that Sunday night game against the Steelers. Well, Brandon Staley, he's been harassed basically since the wild card game against the Jaguars. If he wasn't facing harassment before that, but he definitely was facing harassment at that point as well. And the Chargers, they escaped with the win last week against the Vikings. Because they went for it on 4th and 1 to try to ice the game up. They didn't get it. And if the Vikings would have came back and won that game, yeah, Brandon Staley would have faced a lot more harassment than what he has already been facing throughout the last 9 months, if not longer. Despite losing Mike Williams for the year, Keenan Allen has been having a feast so far this season. And I think that continues. I trust the Chargers offense more than I can the Raiders offense. The question is, will the Raiders get Josh Jacobs going? I mean, they had the opportunity to give him a goal line touchdown last week, but they decided to throw a pass to Devontae Adams instead, kind of get his confidence going. I mean, they gave him, I believe it was a $12 million deal to play this season and a prove-it deal to get the extension. I almost wonder if the Raiders are sabotaging Josh Jacobs. But either way, I'm picking the Chargers to win. Patriots and Cowboys. The Patriots got their first win of the season last week against the Jets in a low-scoring game, in a game that I anticipated was going to be low-scoring but didn't necessarily want to say it. The Cowboys, An abysmal performance against the Cardinals last week on the road, picking up their first loss of the year. But I do think that it was a loss the Cowboys needed to take. I think the Cowboys, they needed to be humbled a little bit. As it feels like every single season almost, pretty much every season, it feels like the Cowboys always lose that one game every year that nobody sees coming. A game where we just completely get blindsided, and that was last week against the Cardinals. But I do think the Cowboys bounce back this week. However, I do think it's possible the Patriots keep this game close. In fact, that is what I'm anticipating. Both these defenses, they can hold their own. I'm anticipating the Patriots, they stay in it from start to finish, but in the end, I like the Cowboys to win this game. I do think the running game for the Cowboys will be the difference in this game. I do think Tony Pollard is the difference maker in this matchup, and I am picking the Cowboys to bounce back from last week against the Cardinals and picking up back where they left off in the first couple weeks on the winning side. Cardinals and 49ers. If you tuned in last week, you know where I'm going with this. The 49ers are coming off of a Thursday night game where they get the extra rest. The Cardinals are coming off of the emotional win against the Cowboys, getting their first win of the year, first win under new head coach Jonathan Gannon. While the 49ers, they are, at least I feel like, the more complete team in the NFC right now. The NFC team that I feel like is the most consistent. I do think it's 49ers, then the Eagles slightly behind, mainly because I think the 49ers, they have been more consistent than the Eagles have been so far this season. I'm picking the 49ers to win big and convincingly. The Cardinals are coming off of a high against the Cowboys, but I do think they get brought back to reality against the juggernaut in the 49ers. Chiefs and Jets, Sunday Night Football. And the first question I have is, can the Jets defense keep the Jets in this game, and for how long can they? Something tells me that this game is going to look pretty similar to when the Chiefs played the Titans on Sunday Night Football last season, where we're all anticipating, expecting the Chiefs to just start this game, dominate from start to finish, win by 20 plus, and then that's the end of it. But what really happened was the Titans held their own in that game. It took overtime for the Chiefs to win. And am I saying that's going to happen on Sunday where it goes to overtime? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the Jets defense is capable of holding their own. We saw them hold their own against the Bills in week 1. We saw the Jets hold their own last week defensively against the Patriots. But something tells me that the Jets are going to make this game close. They're going to make it a ball game from start to finish. But the Chiefs, they do get the win. I do believe the Jets right now are about a 9.5 to a 10-point underdog. That could be something to take into consideration. The points in this one, I think, something to consider. But I do think the Chiefs, they do win outright in the end. But I think the Jets make it a lot closer than what we're all thinking. Seahawks and Giants to wrap up week 4, Monday Night Football. Currently, the Giants are a 1.5-point favorite. And there are reasons for that. 1, they're at home. 2, they have the extra rest factor playing on Thursday night last week. And 3, it's possible Saquon Barkley may play in this game. I do think the Giants have been getting a bad rap so far this season. As they are 1-2, their only win against the Cardinals. But the Cardinals, they beat the Cowboys last week, who I think are easily a top 3 team in the NFC. Their first 3 games of the year, Cowboys, Cardinals, 49ers. The Cowboys and 49ers, they are 2 of the strongest teams in the NFC. Not only do they have 2 of the strongest defenses in the NFC, but 2 of the strongest defenses in the entire league. And in those 2 games, the Giants, they moved the ball well on their first possession. But after that, they just seem to have a hard time getting the ball moving. Now, I do like to pick the teams that played on Thursday night last week, but I'm not going to here. I do think the Giants, we're going to say a more valiant effort from them this week, but I'm picking the Seahawks. The Seahawks, they have moved the ball well in the last couple weeks. Jamal Adams is expected to make his season debut this week against the Giants. I'm picking Seattle. And that will do it for my week 4 predictions. Comment your predictions down below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, enjoy the football this weekend. My week 5 college football predictions video was uploaded yesterday. If you didn't check that out, please feel free to do so. And enjoy the football, as it's going by faster than what I would like.